It's all coming through. Thanks very much. Welcome, councillors, to this July ordinary meeting of the Blayney Shire Council. Thank you for your attendance. In opening the meeting, I'd like to acknowledge the Wiradjuri people. Thanks very much. Welcome, councillors, to this ordinary meeting of Blayney Shire Council. Thank you for your attendance. In opening the meeting, I would like to acknowledge the Wiradjuri people, the traditional custodians of the land on which we're meeting. Pay my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging, and extend that to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people present here today or watching the live stream of this meeting. Councillors, can I remind you that this meeting is being recorded and live streamed, and by speaking at this meeting you agree to be recorded. Please ensure that in speaking at the meeting you are respectful in what you say, and I extend those comments to our public forum tonight. Next item on the agenda is apologies for non-attendance. Mr. GM.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we have an apology from the Mayor, Scott Ferguson, for tonight's meeting.
Thank you. Disclosures of interest. Can we have a mover that we accept the apologies? Councillor Reynolds, seconded Councillor Newstead. Those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you, carried. Disclosures of interest.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to this point in time I've got one declaration of interest. It is from yourself, Chair David Somervale. It is tonight's meeting, 23rd of the 7th, 24. It is item 11, page 87. The reason is you are a member of the Blayney A&P Association and a user of the Blayney Showground. It's non-pecuniary, less than significant, so you won't leave the room.
Thank you. We move on to public forum, and I believe tonight we do have a public forum, and I would like to invite to the microphone Rosemary Reid, Secretary of the Blayney A&P Association. Rosemary, welcome to this meeting. We We generally allow around about 5 minutes in our public forum, but we're pretty flexible in relation to that, and we're certainly not going to cut you off midstream when you're in full flight. So over to you. We look forward to hearing what you've got to say.
Thank you, David. I just wanted to address everybody. I have actually emailed all the councillors on item 11, which is the Blayney Showground Master Plan 2024. We just had some areas of submission, and I didn't seem to think that they were answered to me before this plan was going to be put to you councillors for a vote. And so therefore I contacted, I had actually been in contact through a couple of areas of submission with council and still hadn't heard anything back, and I noticed that there was one other submission from the Blayney AMP Association on behalf of, and also one other from the one of the horse users. Basically that the plan itself, to my thinking, had some errors, some gross errors that were never picked up right from the start. We did have a couple of meetings with the contractor back last year, and then nothing since. I have been actually asking quite a few times, you know, what's happening, why hasn't it come up? Because our show for 2025 will come around pretty quickly. The main area of concern for us is the location of the yard dog yards, which you may be aware that are still in the position that they were for the Blayney show, purposely so that people could have a look and see where they were and find whether there was an area that wasn't suitable to other users. But we figure that it really is only an area that's going to be an issue for horse users that might want to park in the shade, fully in the shade, but there's still plenty of area for them to park. The area that was shown on the plan for the yard dogs was out over the back of the showground, which is where we have our show dog area. So we really couldn't have the two together. Safety-wise, we really need to have that yard dog area under the trees for the shade. For the stock, mostly. The stock are there all day from 6 in the morning until about 4 in the afternoon. So they really need to have some sort of shaded area, and also for competitors. So that was our main area of concern. And as a very important user of that showground, even though it's only one time per year, and we actually feel that we've put a fair bit of money and effort into assets at the showground, and we've worked really closely with council all along, so that's why I thought it was important to bring this to everyone's attention. The other area was that there was an error regarding concreting the shed part for a barbecue, and we've noted that. We've tried to raise some money, we've tried to get grants to do that, but we wanted the area to be concreted down where there's a new shed on the eastern side of the main big undercover arena. There was a shed built there to cover some containers, and there was an area at the end of it for a barbecue area, which is provided with water and power, but the floor is not a solid floor, so therefore you can't have food stalls there. So that's been a bit of an issue for us as well, as to where to locate our food stalls. So yeah, so they're the main areas. Does anyone have any questions? Or
Thank you very much, Rosemary. No, we will certainly take note of what you've had to say, and we will be discussing that when we get to the item on the agenda. So thank you very much for addressing us.
thank you.
Item 7, moving on, is mayoral minute. There being no mayor, there's no mayoral minute. Item 8, confirmation of minutes of the meeting held on the 25th of June. Minutes are included in the business paper. Would someone like to move that those minutes be confirmed? Councillor Reynolds. Councillor Ewan seconded. Thank you. Any discussion in relation to the minutes? In the absence of any discussion, I'll put that. Those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. Carried. Any matters arising from the minutes? No, I think not. So we will move on to item 2 on the agenda, page 18, the quarterly outstanding resolutions report. Would someone like to move the recommendation that we note the report? Councillor Newstead? Councillor Price-Jones? Thank you. Any questions or comments in relation to the outstanding resolutions? Councillor Reynolds?
Thank you, Chair. I have a couple of questions. So firstly, to the Blayney Rotary Lookout project. A little confused here. It says an $18,000 grant application was submitted on the 20th of July 2024, which was last Saturday after the business paper was put in, so I'm not quite sure if there's an issue with the date. But my more pertinent question, because it says completed and will be deleted, have we been successful in getting that grant funding, whether the date was earlier, whether it was June or whenever, but as in, I suppose, to the General Manager or Director, have we succeeded so that then we can actually close this off?
Through Mr Chair, Councillor Reynolds, you're correct. It was the 20th of June that it was submitted. It had to be before 30 June. That is in. I can't confirm if the money is in the bank. I can take that on notice. But it is in the DP, which is why the suggestion was it's completed and to be deleted.
Thank you.
Next one, if I may, is with regard to the minutes of the Financial Assistance Committee held on the 2nd of April 2024, with regard to Anzac Day and the march. Has that progressed at all with the GM and Mayor to coordinate a meeting with regard to the Anzac Day march, particularly in Blayney, but also Millthorpe, and whether the march could be changed to actually save a substantial amount of money, as in there's some background. So probably possibly again to the GM, as he is one of the two people that we're supposed to meet.
GM.
Through Mr Chair, Councillor Reynolds, with the Mayor being away, it's on my list to coordinate upon his return.
Next question, if I may, Chair. Review of the Community Financial Assistance Program is in progress. Just wanted clarification. Are we aiming that the review will conclude under the new council, given that there's only another month of this council? As in, what's the aim? Is it to conclude next month, or is it to conclude with the new council, that review?
Mr GM.
Through Mr Chair, it's intended to go to the next council workshop. There's been an initial discussion and in which some good progress was made. Whether it will be finalised prior to this one for the next council, it will be close, and that's up for further discussion with council.
Thank you, GM. To the Chair again. Now, and this is probably not about the recommendation, but more, there's a note here with regard to proposed road closure lot for DP and a number, but on the other side it goes advertised in the Blayney Chronicle on the 20th of June. So I assume there's a legal requirement that on certain things we have to advertise. So what are we going to do now that the Blayney Chronicle has announced that it's closing? What options do council have to take, and it may need to be taken on notice, with regard to advertising, changes, road closure changes, etc. Is the website enough, or do we have to look at alternative methods of communicating with the community? Through you, Chair.
Mr GM.
Through Mr Chair, Councillor Reynolds, you are correct. The Blayney Chronicle has advised that it will no longer go print from late August. I can't remember the exact date off the top of my head. We've started internally preliminary discussions about what the options are. It'll be our intent to engage with council at a future workshop on what is the direction for community engagement regarding that. There's a secondary component about legislative compliance, which I think you're raising, and that's something we're going to consider.
Next one.
I think, Councillor Reynolds, I think the requirement normally is that these things be advertised in a paper circulating regularly in the region or something like that. So maybe the Blayney Chronicle will be circulating, even if it's circulating online. And if not, there are other papers reasonably close to us.
The biggest, if I may, Chair, the biggest challenge I see is outside of a Saturday paper, the Bathurst, Orange and Dubbo papers don't appear to going to be exist as per se, except for the Saturday edition. The rest of them may be just online stories. Again, I don't know the final outcome, so that may create a challenge. But anyway, the General Manager has taken it on notice to sort of have a discussion and look at a pathway forward. But it is, I suppose it was inevitable with regard to the Blayney Chronicle, as in ceasing publication. But it is a sad loss, and particularly for our older community, who were the major subscribers, I suppose, to the physical copy of the Blayney Chronicle, and yeah, to communicate across the community, whether council, and I know this is not with regard to the report, but I'll just sort of extrapolating it a little bit, if I may, that council may want to actually have a look at how other communication can be formed across the community. And I know we have the GM's comment, but again, that's in the Blayney Chronicle, whether there are other ways that we may be able to communicate in the future, particularly with our older population, on what's sort of taking place in the Shire. So just something to keep in the back of our mind, but it was more the legal compliance was what I was specifically talking about in this case. If I may, on that note, move across to Centrepoint, and just wondering if and I see here, that we resolved on the tender, etc. If there is any update on how the transition is going across to Belgravia from the Y, through you, Chair.
Yes, the Director.
Not wanting to speak too soon, but thus far things are going very smoothly. Recruitment has gone very well, as we understand it. There have been regular discussions in relation to a number of the nuts and bolts issues that need to be resolved. There are still some to be resolved. At this stage, there'll be one probably minor inconvenience that we've asked has to be well advertised, that on the very last day of YMCA's operation, looked like we might be requiring probably a half a day closure to allow the transfer of computer systems and phone systems and the like. But at this stage, I can report all's going according to plan and quite smoothly at this stage.
Thank you.
Through you, Chair, I assume they're looking at social media and other forms to try and communicate that the facility may be closed for half a day?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, we've asked that be done through YMCA through their channels on social media.
Mr. Chair, I got an email this afternoon advising of that closure. So, as a user, not as a general manager.
Should we, a question again through you, Chair, to maybe the General Manager or the Director, should we then be posting that up on social media? But again, the difficulty is as a user, as in the Council hasn't been formally notified as such of the closure, or?
Through Mr. Chair, we have through the transition period, and they'll have a multitude of engagement through social media, and then mostly it'll be discussion, I think, with patrons that walk through it.
Again, it may be just advisable, as in, given it's a council facility, that we also put that on our Facebook page as a suggestion as well, just to fully inform the community. But I'm sure most, as the General Manager have highlighted, have received a direct correspondence that are members of the current members of it. Through you, Chair, I think there was one more, and it's probably just an interpretation with regard to the terms of reference for ARIC. I see that we had the council had 3 points that we adopt. The Audit Risk Improvement Committee's documents, formalise the appointment of Donna Reigate and Ron Gillard, and also number 5, formalise the appointment of Donna Reigate as the Audit Risk Improvement Committee Chair. I hope that would have been done. It says it's in progress here, but maybe it's a suggestion that it's actually completed rather than still in progress, unless there's been a delay in communicating with the existing members. I see there's a resolution tonight with regard to the appointment of the third person, but in this report here, there is actually no reference to the third person. It's just got .1, 3 and 5. So maybe just as in a note there that is actually completed and doesn't probably need to come back to council in the next quarterly report. That's it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Reynolds. Councillor Price-Jones.
Thanks, Chair. I just wanted a couple of questions, actually. I'm not 100% sure whether I've missed something. I had a question around the naming of Blayney Rotary Lookout. Isn't it, it's called Church Hill. Has it had a change of name, or what it's, I know Blayney Rotary have done a project up there, but what is the actual name of the, because I've always known it as Church Hill.
Mr. Chair, Councillor Price-Jones, I don't know the exact name, to be quite honest. No.
Church Hill, just that's where it is, and I just sort of we keep referring to it as the Blayney Rotary Lookout project, but the actual place is Church Hill, and yes, and the Rotary have done the project in a prior life, but I just sort of feel like it's a little bit confusing around that. And I just had my other question was also around that, was around, have we been confirmed that the money that the Blayney Rotary had raised towards their climbing wall actually been rediverted to this project? I just may have missed that little memo.
Through you, Mr. Chair, can you just repeat the question? Was it, have we confirmed that Rotary have all of the money, or it's been redirected?
Well, I think you were working with Rotary around rediverting or diverting the funding that was set aside for the climbing wall back to this project to enable it, and I just don't recall having heard that that was a successful, sorry.
So, through Mr. Chair, we've been in engagement with Rotary on that matter. I don't believe it's hit any bank accounts, but we have been liaising with Regional New South Wales. I think the other sponsor was Newmont, off memory, about transfer of those funds.
But it's not been confirmed that that money is coming back.
I cannot
is able
confirm
to be diverted.
whether it's hit our bank. I can't confirm that, no.
Right. So when do you think we'll know that? Because
I can follow that up.
Because it's not, it shouldn't be deleted off this register until we probably know that, because it's kind of fairly crucial to the project as a whole.
I'm happy to leave it in there till next quarter if that's what's sought. It's no drama.
Thank you.
Yes, Councillor
Thank
Newstead.
you, Mr. Chair. Just to answer one of Michelle's, I think it's been Blayney Rotary Lookout Church Hill for quite a long time. I've always known it as Blayney Rotary Lookout Church Hill. I think they're two different things, but I think actually there's a plaque or something up on the thing that says Blayney Rotary.
No, there's no doubt that it's there. The place is Church Hill, and it might be the Blayney Rotary Lookout, but the place is Church Hill, and it kind of keeps getting missed in all the documentation. I think it's important that we retain that. And definitely there's lots of acknowledgement around the Blayney Rotary Club up there already.
Any further questions in relation to the outstanding resolutions report? Councillor Newstead.
Just quickly, just on the sale of 31 Gertie Street, has there been any comeback with another price, or is it still?
Through Mr. Chair, Councillor Newstead, there has been no further correspondence for a couple of weeks.
There's no further questions in relation to this. I'll put that one. Those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. That's carried. Moving on to item 3, report on council investments. Do I have a mover and seconder for the recommendation? Councillor Newstead, Councillor Goswich. Thank you. Questions or comments in relation to the investment report? Councillor Newstead.
I'll be really quick to let Councillor Reynolds get in. It's just amazing looking at the interest rates that we're getting now compared to, say, 2 years ago when we were lucky to be getting 0.5%. I notice there's only a few in the 4s now, and most of those are 4.9 or 4.8. The rest are above 5. It's amazing how quickly it turned around. Thank you, Mr.
It's an amazing turnaround in a couple of years, isn't it? Won't last, I guess, but it's good for the moment. Yes, Councillor Reynolds.
Thank you, Chair. There are a couple of questions. Firstly, a thank you through to the director that we now have the total interest earned for the year. So appreciate that report. I do, however, have a question on the $117,885 earned for the month. I did the calculation on the interest below, as in on the 5 fixed terms, and it comes out at $118,696, so nearly $1,000 difference. But it also doesn't pick up the operating accounts, which we earn about 4% on. There's 2 operating accounts with Commonwealth Bank. So I'm just wondering, and I'm happy for the director to take it on notice, as in that interest earned for June, whether what that figure actually is. I have no doubts that the money in the bank is the money in the bank, so I'm happy to support the recommendation, but just with the report, as in how much actual interest did we earn? Was it the $118,696 plus some money from those 2 operating accounts? As in, because I assume interest is paid on a monthly basis on those operating accounts, but it may not be. So that's probably a question again on whether interest is paid on a monthly basis, but also whether that figure is actually correct or there's an issue with the money below, because normally with term deposits, you get the actual interest when the term deposit expires. So I just want clarification on that as well. So unless the director has answers, he may want to take them on notice.
Mr. Director.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Interest is calculated on an accrual basis, so I anticipate the interest calculated will be on an accrual basis. However, I'll take your question on notice and come back with a response to clarification.
Well, that leads on, if I may, Chair, as in the last council meeting, I did ask if we could have an actuals amount as well, so how much we actually received in the month. So whether that's permissible, whether it's possible or not, I don't know, but if the director could have a look in that rather than just an accrual basis, which is just sort of averaging across how much is there and how much we would earn with all the different deposit rates, as Councillor Newstead said. So anyway, I'll throw it through a question to the director, whether that's possible to have an actual interest earned report back each month.
So just to clarify that, you're interested in knowing the cash position as well as the accruals position on our investments?
On notice.
Thank you. Any other comments in relation to the investment report? If not, I will put that. Those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. Carried. Moving on to item 4, Councillor and Mayoral Remuneration on page 39. Would someone like to move that recommendation in its 3 parts? Councillor Price-Jones?
I wasn't paying attention.
Councillor Price-Jones has moved that, and Councillor Reynolds has seconded it. Is there any discussion in relation to this item? Councillor Reynolds.
Thank you, Chair. Look, as in the community might look and go, okay, councillors have voted, if this passes tonight, for $13,500 or $13,520 for councillor remuneration. Community don't realise the behind, and for the mayor, $29,500 extra on top of the $13,500. I don't think the community fully appreciates or understands what councillors do. The amount of meetings that they attend, the amount of workshops that they participate in, that the council meeting is only a very small proportion of the overall workload of each individual councillor. The amount of reading, the amount of emails, both with the community but also internally within council, etc., as in adds up to a lot of time per month. So remuneration, while it might look reasonably substantial for, say, 12 or a couple of extraordinary meetings, say 13 or 14 meetings a year, it's only a very small component of the councillor workload in any month. So, and throughout the whole year. So from a remuneration point of view, as in the councillors are are very deserving, I suppose you could say, of this level of remuneration. It is the lowest of a general purpose council in New South Wales. All other councils are entitled to a much higher remuneration, but Blayney Shire, being a small council, is on the lowest rung of the remuneration. A lot of the regional councils around us, like Bathurst and Orange, are entitled to nearly double the remuneration per councillor for their contribution. So fully support the recommendation. It's only a small rise on last year's remuneration, but as in every dollar is hardly earned, or well earned, I suppose you could say, because of the behind the scenes work that each of the councillors do. So fully support this recommendation, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Reynolds. Councillor Price-Jones.
Thanks, Chair. I also support the recommendation. I think just to add to Councillor Reynolds' comments, we also lose around 30% in tax off that as well. So just to keep it in perspective.
Thank you. Any more comments in relation to this item? If not, I'll put that. Those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. That's carried. Move on to item 5, page 41, review of agency information guide. Do I have a mover and a seconder for that? Councillor Price-Jones. Councillor Goswich, thank you. Questions or comments on this one? I think in the absence of any comments in relation to this, I will put that. Those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. That's carried. The next policy is item 6, the event management policy review, page 57. Do I have a mover and seconder for that recommendation? Councillor Newstead, seconded Councillor Goswich. Thank you. Questions or comments on this one? Councillor Price-Jones.
We're on the event management policy, aren't we? I do actually have a comment around item 22 of the policy, where it talks about event organisers being encouraged to make their events more accessible so that people living with disability can attend and participate. I think we need to do more than encourage people to do this. I think every event should actually show cause or show proof that they are actually doing whatever they can to make it accessible for not only people living with physical disability, but also those living with a mental health disability as well. So that might include things such as quiet spaces at the Firefest up at in Millthorpe in a couple of weeks. There's all sorts of ways to make it inclusive and also accessible. So I believe that little section needs a little bit more thought, and I also would put a recommendation that it goes to the Disability Inclusion Working Group. We have a meeting on the 1st of August, and as far as I'm aware, they haven't seen this yet. So,
thank you, Councillor Price-Jones. Can I suggest maybe that in relation to this, given that the policy is now going out on exhibition, subject to us passing this resolution, that the Disability Working Group come forward with what they would like to see in clause 22, and we'll consider it no doubt at a councillor workshop when we hear what the suggested wording is. Councillor Reynolds.
Thank you, Chair. The one question I've got with it, and I don't know whether it's good or bad, it does mention 3 months' notice within this event policy. And I only gave it a quick glance, so there may be something else in it that says that you can go in under that period of time. Sometimes organisers do, for various reasons, leave it to the last minute, or when I say the last minute, it might be 2 months out or something. I am aware if it's got to go to the traffic committee, that you really need 3 months to get it to their, so the traffic committee can review and then make a recommendation and come back to council. But yeah, and possibly I'll have some input back into the draft when it's out in public exhibition. Maybe the better way to go here once I've reread it again and fully understand the ramifications. But that's probably the 3 months. I understand the reasons why, but as in whether there can also be exemptions or exceptions, and you've got to have some time period. You can't have it the day before. But anyway, I'll have a think about it and come back through the exhibition period to council with my thoughts on it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Reynolds. We'd appreciate that input. Any further comments on the event management policy? If not, I'll put that. Those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. That's carried. Now we move on to item 7, the appointment of an independent member to our Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee, page 65. Someone like to move the appointment of Liz Jeremy as our independent member? Yes, Councillor Reynolds, thank you. Seconded, Councillor Ewan. Questions or comments on this one? Councillor Reynolds.
Thank you, Chair. As you were also involved, and you may want to have a couple of words, but a quick explanation. Myself, yourself and Councillor Michelle Cook from Shire, who's on Central Tablelands Water, participated in the recruitment process. I think it was 30 applications for this process. There were some very high calibre candidates. The recruitment panel shortlisted down to 4, and we have made the recommendation of the appointment of Liz Jeremy as the third member of this panel. She comes from I think it's Ballina no, it's not Ballina. It's
Bellingen,
Bellingen, as in just down the road past Coffs Harbour. The Bellingen Shire area, as in has been a general manager at at Bellingen Shire Council. So she's seen both sides, or as in was on the staff side, is now on a number of audit risk improvement committees. Is very much in a focus on support and supporting councils to make sure that the policies and procedures and risk management are sort of implemented, but also in a way that, and particularly for the smaller councils, so as I was there as the Central Tablelands Weeds Authority representative, that is in to support the smaller councils because they have a lot less capacity with their audit risk improvement committee, but also with the larger Blayney Shire Council. So I would fully support the recommendation for the appointment of Liz Jeremy after an extensive recruitment process, I suppose you could say, Chair.
Yes, thanks, Councillor Reynolds, and I would support what you say, having been on that panel. The 4 that were interviewed were all impressive people, and Liz Jeremy will be an excellent member of our ARIC, so I'm certainly happy to endorse that recommendation. It's for a 4-year period, which will roughly coincide with the next term of council. What is interesting is now that audit risk and improvement committees have been mandated throughout the state, there's a group of professionals mostly involved in local government over their careers who are now finding a career in being independent members of audit committees. So most of the people we interviewed have had a fair bit of experience on other councils, small councils and large councils. So we'll have the benefit of tapping into the experience of these people who've seen it all in other councils. So it's a good thing. Any other comments? If not, I'll put that. Those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. Next is item 8. The report on our compliance activities. Someone like to move that recommendation? Councillor Goswich, thank you. Councillor Price-Jones seconded that. It's good to see we are completing everything within the due timeframes. Any comments on this one? If not, I'll put that. Those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you, that's carried. Moving right on to item 9, page 69, the monthly report from the Director of Infrastructure Services. Someone like to move that? Councillor Reynolds? Councillor Goswich, thank you. Any comments or questions to the Director on his report? Councillor Newstead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just quickly, I'd imagine that the boys on the graders will be pretty busy. I know I drive on a couple of dirt roads every day, and the potholes after this rain are pretty bad, so I'd imagine there'll be a fair bit of work going on over the next few months. That's all.
That to the Director, probably to agree.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we're very busy.
Councillor Reynolds.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, a big thank you through to the staff, as in the road signage for Spring Terrace Road looks fantastic. There's now a sign that actually points to Orange, 22 kilometres. There's Spring Terrace Road sign there as well, and there's signs on either side to Forest Reefs and Millthorpe. So thank you to the staff for upgrading, because there was an issue with the intersection. It was very dark, and particularly at night time. I haven't looked at it at night time at this stage. So tonight, when I go home, I'll actually have a look and see whether it's a little bit reflective. But as in, it was very, very hard to see the intersection both ways. Both from Forest Reefs and also to Millthorpe. So through you, Chair, to the Director, to the staff, thank them for inserting the sign and progressing with that to make the intersection far more illuminated, but also a sign to show you that it is one way that you can actually get to Orange City. The second point, that I had a resident contact me yesterday with regard to Richards Lane, and I went and had a look today myself, with regard to the new work, and it seems to have started to corrugate a little bit, getting a ripple effect, not severely or significantly, and maybe a settling issue. I don't know if the Director has any indication, or whether, hopefully it is only a settling issue in that 350 metres that was bitumen, but there is the resident was concerned with the new roadworks that had started to form this little wave pattern or corrugation pattern.
Mr. Director.
Through you, Chair, can I just clarify, is this in the sealed or unsealed section?
In the sealed section.
We'll look at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Reynolds, for drawing that to the Director's attention. Councillor Newstead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just going back to Councillor Reynolds with the Spring Terrace sign, I actually, when you're coming from Forest Reefs, you don't see it because there's a tree right there. It's a private tree, unfortunately, and I must admit, when I saw it the other night, I thought, oh, that's a big sign showing Orange, but the Spring Terrace Road is very small. Like, you can hardly read that, honestly. But I think, I don't know whether anything can be done with the tree, because you come around the corner coming from Forest Reefs and you're on that intersection before you realise. I don't know, to the Director, whether, have you noticed that tree that's there that blocks that sign?
Director.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Look, I haven't personally noticed the tree, but I know that the sight distance for that signage as you approach the road is compliant.
Keep.
A follow-up. The sight distance to the sign or to the intersection?
The signage. So we've reviewed
From
the
the signage to the
signage.
intersection.
We've reviewed the signage to ensure it meets the requirements for illumination and upgraded it accordingly. Vegetation management wasn't part of this review, but we can certainly have a further look at that.
Thank you, Councillor Newstead. Any more questions on the Director's report? If not, I'll put that. Those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. Moving on to item... item 10, the addition of names to our pre-approved list of road names. Would someone like to move that recommendation? Councillor Newstead, thank you. Councillor Price-Jones has seconded that. Any questions on the recommendation, which has come out of a fairly extensive community consultation and a lot of community input, I have to say, in relation to this, which is good to see. Councillor Price-Jones.
Thanks, Chair. I'm nearly jumping out of my seat. So we did discuss this at a workshop, and I'm surprised to see, I thought we'd had a reasonable discussion around the two names of Crofts and Hoadley, and they're not being accepted because they're the current commercial business name within Blayney. I think I explained then that I think that that's an unfair and probably not very relevant criteria, because Hill and Crofts has been trading now for 100 years. Both families have been significant in the area. I think it's really sad that they wouldn't be recognised just because we chose, and several others before us chose, to continue that business name. So that's from personal to me, obviously, but I still think it's very important. And same with the Hoadley name. I think the fact that somebody has a trading as name, it doesn't really constitute a criteria that they should be not recognised, because you're not talking about the person running the business, you're talking about the people that maybe did their 100 years, like in our case, or longer. Actually, the Hills go back to 1884. I just think that needs to be re-looked at and considered.
Yep, I think the Director would like to comment on that.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that requirement is actually set by the Geographical Names Board. It's not a requirement that Council has just developed in their policy. It's set at a Geographical Names Board which approve place and street names.
If those people are no longer in the business, like, the name of a business is just the name of a business. It doesn't actually...
The wording provided there is the exact wording in the GNB guidelines, so it's a current commercial business name, is the wording they use. They don't refer to the names of individuals that own or operate those businesses. It's the business name.
How would we go about addressing that, maybe at a higher level? Is that a JO thing, or is that who can help us get some relevance around that?
About lobbying the Geographic
Yeah,
Names
maybe,
Board
I
to
don't
remove
know.
that requirement.
But who does that for us? Is it the Mayor? Is
Yep.
it our executive? Is it JO? Is it somebody, our local member? Like, who would we look to?
I'll ask the General Manager to comment on that just briefly, because it is a bit beyond the subject matter of this resolution. It's an important point, and it's something maybe we need to take up, but it only comes up indirectly in relation to this particular matter before the Council. But ask the GM if he's got a comment.
Through Mr. Chair, Councillor Price-Jones, I'd have to take that on notice as to, I mean, we can write a letter, but I'd have to look at the avenues as to who has to be corresponded with to try and drive some change in that space. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Price-Jones. Yes, Councillor Reynolds.
Thank you, Chair. And I just wanted to note that it's great that we've got a couple of Aboriginal names included in the list, but we've also got a number of prominent women in the Shire, particularly in the Millthorpe area, but across the Shire that last name is also appearing here in modern history, but also in past history as well. So it's great that we were able to expand and go out for public comment and feedback, and I think there were several submissions. I think it was around 5 submissions on different names. So it's fantastic that we have actually highlighted both some Aboriginal names that developers potentially could use for street names, but also some very prominent women in our community over the last 100 or so years that have made an impact on our community. So it's a good outcome in what has actually been put up. So I fully support the proposed new names to go onto our list. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Reynolds. Any further Comments from councillors? If not, I will put those in favour.
Aye.
Thank you. That's carried. Now we move on to item 11, the Blayney Showground Master Plan, which of course was the subject of our public forum this evening. There is a recommendation there in 5 parts. Someone like to move that? Councillor Newstead. Seconded by Councillor Ewan.
Chair,
any
may I
questions
now
or
move an
comments?
amendment?
Councillor Reynolds would like to propose an amendment.
So, if Lauren has the amendment that she can put up on the board, if I've got, sorry, I'll put it up, then I'll ask for a seconder. I think that's a good way to.
Let's get it on the table first.
So, there's a proposed amendment, which I'll explain in a moment, on there. So, if councillors may want to have a read of it before a second councillor is willing to move an amendment, support the amendment.
Councillors all absorbed the amendment, and if so, I will ask for a seconder. Councillor Price-Jones has seconded that. Councillor Reynolds would like to speak to the amendment.
Just
you.
before we do, sorry, just semi-annual I think should have a hyphen in it. It's not happy.
It's not an amendment. That's a typographical correction.
I just didn't want to lose my track.
Just for
Mr. Reynolds.
clarification, Chair, as in, I believed it could be spelled either way, but spell check has picked it up as a. But I'm happy with the change and modification.
Is it semi or semi-annual?
It's a very good question, Chair. But as in the intent, so I'll explain, including the semi or semi-annual meeting in a moment. So we'll firstly go through what the public submissions, and again in tonight's public forum, we heard from Rosemary Reid with concerns particularly about the dog yard area. So I'm proposing to locate it to exactly where it currently is located, as in which was a trial put up there. Now I understand that my recollection is we've given the Show Society financial assistance to make it permanent at the last financial assistance grants. So it needs to be actually clarified where they can put it, so that they can then progress and implement that financial assistance grant that was provided. As we heard tonight, besides maybe some horse parking, there's not really a lot of other usage in that area, and it was there for the last show. So there hasn't been a lot of negative feedback about it being located there. So that's part A of the amendment. Part B, again, as we heard tonight, the concrete kitchen barbecue area is to be deleted off the plan that was proposed in the business paper. Part C, the shed to the east of the Quelk and south of the new food vendor alley is to be concreted so that there's a hard floor to allow. That's under the plan, so there's no guarantee of when or if it'll be concreted, but at least it's there in the plan, which I think was the other concern of Rosemary Reid with regard to the food vendor area, so that make it compliant if it is concreted. And then part 6, that semi-annual, so twice a year, meetings be held with the showground user group, councillor chaired, and an alternate, at least on that council, on that committee, but other councillors could go along if they wanted to go to that meeting, to progress aspects of the showground master plan over a period of time. Now, I'm not suggesting tonight that we appoint, that I'm more suggesting that the new council would look at potentially appointing a councillor and an alternate councillor to that showground user group, so that as in at least twice a year that group could meet, and if there is funding opportunities or whatever, to look at advancing particular projects within the showground. If there is no funding opportunities, the user group may elect to only hold an annual meeting, as in once a year, but at least it gives an opportunity. But I'm just a question through to the General Manager. If we were to approve this tonight with the semi-annual meetings, do you see any ramifications of a councillor-led, as in there would obviously probably at least one staff member there as well, user group possibly twice a year?
Through you, Mr. Chair, Councillor Reynolds, I guess, having processed it, I guess, is it a 355? And if so, what are we delegating to that group? What function and what's the charter? The way it reads at the moment, it's 2 meetings a year, irrespective of whether the user group opt for an annual or not. I'm trying to process the intent of it as well, because the master plan is to set a layout plan to reduce conflict. That's essentially what the intent of the master plan was. So it's something to go, which would both of the facility. It was for the user groups to use as a basis to go and get grant funding. It wasn't for council to go and facilitate. So that's my probably initial thoughts on the couple of things, yeah.
I'll still continue. I'm not quite sure, as the other alternative to a 355 committee, as in, is there an alternative? So a second question through to the General Manager, through you, Chair, that there could be just an advisory committee, or as in some other working group that a councillor or 2 councillors appear on and one chairs it?
Through you, Mr. Chair, no, I think it'd have to be a committee of a council made by resolution, which I know you've said would be next term, but there's no guidance there. I guess I think we'd given the indication we'd have a meeting with the users to explain the master plan and how to go forward from there. I think it'd be a good question to put to that user group. Okay, how do you want to meet and how often? And that can then form a decision back to council as to, well, do we need to do anything in this area?
A further question, if I may, through to the General Manager.
Yes.
Chair. So if we made this resolution tonight, as in council could do the new council could do a new resolution to maybe change if the user group said, no, we only want to meet once a year, or we don't want to meet anymore, etc., to amend what if my fellow councillors agreed to this tonight, to potentially amend this recommendation at a future date. Is that a possibility? Or if the user groups, because I haven't consulted with user groups, so it's more, as in the feedback I've had is that they'd like to have more feedback and more input, and given it's council managed facility, given it's Crown land, but the council is the I suppose you'd say trustee, or as in land manager, I think is the correct term of the showground. So yeah, could council change, if it was the user group said that they wanted something different, council by resolution, I assume, could change this recommendation to something else?
Through Mr. Chair, Council, yes, in theory, Council could pass any resolution down the track to supersede another. There is a minimum time period, but I guess when I look back at this facility, there's been heightened community consultation over probably 5 years since the equestrian centre concept, and as that was developed and then through into this plan. So we are coming off heightened engagement in that space. This has probably been one of the most significant consultations undertaken for a precinct. So, I mean, the resolution will sit there and essentially it'll get picked up in our resolution report, how we meet that. So it's really up to council to decide, or to give staff direction as to what to do, but that is quite an open resolution there, which will hang around until
may I say then, as in the intent was it was fairly open, so that it wasn't, extremely prescriptive to my fellow councillors, but at the same time sort of gives a pathway forward to start an engagement, and then if a future council decided that should be going on a different pathway, then a further resolution could be brought forward. So I'll leave it as such and out there, as in this amendment, and I'll wrap it up there on my proposal with this amendment, Chair.
So Councillor Reynolds, you are pressing the amendment including paragraph 6?
Correct.
Thank you. Thank you. I must say, in relation to paragraph 6, I think it's very important. We have user group meetings at the facility there. As the General Manager said, there's been heightened activity over the last few years with the equestrian centre and then the master plan, and it's important that those user groups continue. My concern in relation to this is the requirement that it be councillor chaired and councillor alternate involved. I mean, I think, for my part, I'm very happy that we resolve as a council that user group meetings be held regularly, semi-annually, or whenever required by the user groups. That's fine. It's the councillor input which I think I'd be a little bit concerned about doing it on the fly as to whether this is a 355 committee, whether it needs a charter, what delegations does it have, and what the role of the councillors is. I mean, the users have all got an interest in the facility, a particular interest from their own point of view. Councillors got an overall interest managed through the staff, not through the councillors. I mean, councillors do need to get input as to what the user groups are thinking to fulfil our roles as councillors. But so from my point of view, it's the councillor involvement in item 6 which troubles me a bit. But if there was an alternative that we had user group meetings which weren't councillor chaired, then I'd be happy with that personally. But that's just my comments. I'll ask for other... Yeah, Councillor Price-Jones.
Thanks, Chair. Now, I do have a bit of a comment around 6, because that was probably it's probably one thing that I find really important to being able to keep this front of mind as a project and as a major facility in the area. I think that we've obviously just spent a significant amount of money coming up with a master plan, and it would be terrible if it just got popped in a top drawer and forgotten about. I also saw huge benefits in bringing everyone together under the one roof, and so I guess that needs somebody to coordinate that, and as our community representatives, I do think that we are the best people to do that. I think going forward, if we want those community groups to work well together, I think that if we can get in the room and they can all talk and share their experiences and their own individual goals in terms of their own, area that they're interested in, I think that would be really positive. And for me personally, I found the group meetings really uplifting to get that many people in the room talking about something that they're all individually passionate about. And lastly, the facility has the option to be a really, really great facility for this town. There's really nothing else like it close by. And I think that we should all really uphold that and encourage it. And I hope that future councils continue to keep it front of mind and what we might be able to achieve there.
Thank you, Councillor Price-Jones. Any further comments? No? Councillor Ewan.
I think I'm quite happy with the proposed. Maybe item 6. I think that the user groups the user groups to a certain extent, but it'll be coordinated in the sense, particularly with and then that then can be created together with the council.
Thank you, Councillor Ewan. Any comments? Yes, Councillor Price-Jones.
I just wanted to add to Councillor Ewan's comments. I think we're not trying to pin everyone down to 2 meetings a year, and that's why it was kept a little open. I think that could come. I think more importantly, if things happen more frequently, then I guess it's that front of mind thing, and also the opportunity for these user groups to understand where possible grant funding might be applied for, might be coming from. It's very hard to do that once a year. And I think it would be great, because they've all got to work together in that space. I think getting them together and really encouraging and building a culture of that collaborative look at the venue, I think would be really helpful for everybody, and certainly to the benefit of the community at large. So.
You want to close the debate on the amendment, Councillor Reynolds?
If I may, and just to respond to the questions that you posed, and also Councillor Ewan, I see the councillor as a facilitator, as a chair to bring together the parties, as in when I say the parties, the user groups, to actually be, I suppose, impartial rather than being, as in trying to take sides, but facilitate positive outcomes, and then, as I said, an alternate, so there's a councillor there if the chair, as in the person that council would appoint as chair, was unavailable, that there would be an alternate councillor to chair that user group. As I said, as in whether it's once a year or twice a year, as in with what Councillor Ewan was saying, as in I'm here nor there. I just thought twice a year is probably better to bring together the user groups. The one goal that I have, though, for the facility is to get an increase in the using of the facility, as in the more it's used, to the betterment of the community, because there are more events, etc. So that's my ultimate goal. If we can make it a better facility and facilitate, as in grant applications, or try and get the user groups to say this is a higher priority. So if there's some CRIFT funding from the Crown lands available, that the council sort of coordinates and facilitates an application. So you might want to put it around the CRIFT funding time periods, etc. Those 2 meetings, which I think are open twice a year, if my memory serves me right. So again, it's trying to facilitate and to advance forward to create what is a fantastic facility into a brilliant facility, and I just see this as one way that, now that we've done the master plan, and it's as in all components of it are quite expensive, but some individual groups may be able to go and find funding from a particular body exterior to the council funding routes, and then come back and say we will give you in-kind work, etc., to do this particular part of the showground facility. So again, the intent there is to try and enhance what we've got and try and utilise this management plan to move forward and actually start instigating some of the recommendations or the findings of the master plan. So support the 6 recommendations as such. With regard to staff's interpretation, because I know that they look at the discussion tonight, is again to try and get some form of organisation, whether it comes under a Section 355 committee, so a committee of council, but to actually enhance, and because we've got such a big shed there, we as council manage that facility, including the shed, but the whole showground. So the intent there is to try and work with the community groups, and the chair of that committee, as in being a councillor from the next council, actually to be more of a facilitator to actually try and drive some real positive outcomes. Thank you, Chair.
I certainly agree with you, Councillor Reynolds, in relation to the importance of the facility and the importance of developing the facility and maximising council's revenue from the facility. And we've got a big investment there, and it's important that we make the most of it, and that user groups get together. I agree with all of that. My only concern is the sort of the councillor led rather than staff led, but with councillor participation. Anyway, that's my view. But this has now been put as a package. And are there any more comments in relation to this? I'll put that. Those in favour?
Aye.
I'll declare that carried. Moving on to item 12, Development Assessment Quarterly Report. Someone like to move that? Yes, Councillor Newstead, seconded Councillor Goswich. Any discussion in relation to that? Yes, Councillor Reynolds.
Thank you, Chair. I do have a question through to the Director of Planning, and it's come from some community members, and I've had some questions asked of me with regard to the old bowling club and the development on there, whether the council can actually give an update to the community on where that's up to at the moment. I know there's only certain things that council can actually divulge, but whether there can be some form of community update on where that development currently sits, whether it's here in council, but also whether some other form of communication can be put out. And it's probably only going to be very, very basic, I suspect, given the planning process. But anyway, a question through to the Director, through you, Chair, on whether there can be any update and what, if any, update the Director can provide.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I can provide an update that what is awaited and we understand is in the process of being prepared are further expert reports in relation to, I guess, technical issues of compliance with Building Code of Australia and the performance requirements of the Building Code of Australia, and also in relation to accessibility. So we await those reports before we can progress the matter further.
Yes, Councillor Reynolds.
A supplementary or follow-up on that. Is there any time frame at all? This is the question I get asked a lot, is how long until there's going to be an outcome or some sort of report comes back. It may well be how long is a piece of string, but I'll ask the Director anyway through you, Chair, whether there is any indication of how long those reports are going to take.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It is a little how long is a piece of string. Once one of those reports is received, it will require referral to an external authority, which that time frame is behind our control, of course. So I can't really speculate exactly how long it will be.
Thank you.
Any more questions on the recommendation or the DA progress? If not, I'll put that. Those in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Carried. Item 13, erection of a shed at 22 Burton Street, Blayney. There's a recommendation there that this be approved. Those in favour, someone like to move that? Councillor Goswich, thank you. Seconded, Councillor Ewan. I should mention before we discuss this that councillors have received a copy of the conditions of consent, which weren't included in the original business paper but were forwarded to councillors before this meeting, and I think have now been included in a late item which has been posted to our website. Questions or comments on this one? Yes, Councillor Reynolds.
Probably a question through to the director. We get a lot of these sheds or areas of sheds that are above what the development control plan actually highlights. So are we looking at the development control plan, or and whether there needs to be a modification, or is it working well and we just, as in these have to come back through to council because they're above the, I think it's 10% leeway with regard to these sheds?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, the development control plan is under the process of review. That is being carried out by an external consultant. This is one particular issue that we have asked that be addressed in the review document. And when we get the first blush of that, of the draft review document, we'll be certainly look at consulting further back with councillors.
Councillor Price-Jones.
Thanks, Chair. I'm through you to the Director. So do we have a time frame or a timeline on that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As I recall in the operational plan, just the timeline I think is this year. Having said that, I have had correspondence with the consultant, and we are expecting the first draft to be coming to us very soon. Whether that gets to a point where we can share that with the current council or the new council, I'm unsure at this stage.
Thank you. Any further questions on this one? If not, I will put that. Those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. That is carried. We then move on to item 14. The Central New South Wales JO submission in relation to funding of infrastructure and services. Would someone like to move that recommendation? Councillor Price-Jones, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Goswich, thank you. Any questions on this one? If not, I will put that. Thank you. Those in favour?
Aye.
That's carried. Now we move on to item 15, which the General Manager Annual Performance Review, which we will deal with in closed session. Would someone like to move that we move into closed committee to deal with this? Councillor Price-Jones and Councillor Goswich. Thank you. Those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. That's carried. We'll now move into closed session, and we'll We're now back in open meeting, and I will report on the outcome of the discussion in closed session. The recommendation was moved and seconded and carried that Council note the report regarding the General Manager's annual performance review for the 2023-24 period, which was rated as better than satisfactory, and 2, endorse a discretionary increase to the General Manager's total remuneration package of 3.5% to salary and 2 lots of 0.5% to superannuation, effective from the next anniversary date, 16th of August 2024, to apply for the balance of the contract. That concludes the business of this meeting. I declare the meeting closed.